Hey guys, Ben here and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about Smallville and a Justice League TV show that was supposed to happen after Smallville. So if you do go on to enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like and a comment and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos later this year. Okay, so we are talking about Smallville today. We talked about Smallville recently in regards to an animated sequel TV show that Michael Rosenbaum and Tom Welling are working on. We talked about that. You can go check out that video that's up on the channel recently. But in today's video, we're going to be breaking down the Screen Rant article. The link will be in the description below. The title of the article is DC planned a Justice League TV show before creating the Arrowverse. Now we're going to break this down. And this isn't the first time we've heard about a Justice League TV show that was supposed to be a spin-off off of Smallville. It had been previously reported on by Craig from Krypton's site. Shout out to Craig. Go check out his website. Link will be in the description below. And so it's been known for a good number of years that there was a planned Justice League spin-off after Smallville ended that never came to fruition. Now there is a new piece of information, well, a new teaser that's been released by the episode director of the episode titled Justice. Now that director is Stephen DeKnight. He's a pretty big figure in Hollywood right now. And so he's been very vocal over the years since this episode came out and since Smallville ended that he wanted to do a Justice League spin-off which involved, the Smallville characters like Green Arrow, Cyborg, The Flash, Superman and much more. So let's go ahead and get into this. So the Justice League is DC's premier superhero team, we all know that. And while the squad has shown up in multiple live action projects, the team almost appeared on TV before the Arrowverse and before the DCU. The Arrowverse mostly thrived for around a decade and it made a successful universe while the DCU failed. And obviously there was the Justice League film that was kind of butchered, and then they released Zack Snyder's Justice League. It was a good film, but it never got the continuation because they had to retrospectively go back and give Zack that project again. And so multiple heroes from DC Comics got their chance to shine in the Arrowverse with characters like Green Arrow, Superman, Supergirl, The Flash and more teaming up across the Arrowverse's many series. We saw that in many crossovers. And while the Arrowverse is the best DC live action shared universe, we all know that is a fact. The franchise was not without its faults, which is true, and the Arrowverse notably failed its Justice League. Which is very true because they introduced the Justice League at a bad time. They introduced it in the final episode of Crisis on Infinite Earths, and that was right when COVID was hitting, and so there was no way that they were going to continue that storyline because after that there was barely any crossover episodes on all of the shows that were still on. And you have to remember at that time there was many shows that were still on, and Superman Lois was also coming, so it just didn't turn out to be anything big because of the restrictions and the fact that, the cast couldn't mix and, the crews couldn't mix, and it was just really hard to film any crossover. Obviously, The Flash did its fair share of crossovers in the last 2 seasons of the show, and I'm really grateful that they figured a way around the restrictions. And so formal adventures of the Arrowverse's Justice League had been planned, but were abandoned with the end of the franchise in the years that followed. And that meant obviously the team didn't make a mark. Supergirl, The Flash, Green Arrow technically were a part of the Justice League, but we never saw them properly teaming up whilst known as the Justice League. We saw them teaming up just as a superhero team beforehand in other crossovers. And so that was not the first time that DC has attempted to get the Justice League on TV, as a Justice League series was once in the works. Now we're going to get into the juicy bit here, and that is that DC almost made a spin-off. And so Smallville is one of the most popular TV shows of all time, especially superhero shows. And so while Clark only donned a Superman suit for the series' final episode, Welling's DC hero teamed up with several famous DC characters throughout Smallville's 10 seasons. We all know about this. Among them were heroes like Justin Hartley's Green Arrow, Alan Ritchson's Aquaman, Kyle Gallner's Bart Allen, sorry if I mispronounced his name, and more. And while the team's members appeared multiple times over the years, Smallville Season 6 Episode 11 titled Justice was essentially a backdoor pilot for a Justice League spin-off series off of Smallville. Now, if you guys remember that episode and go back to that episode, you'll remember that there were multiple Justice League heroes that could potentially be part of that spin-off. And so recently, the writer and director of Smallville's Justice episode, Stephen DeKnight, took to Twitter to remember the Justice League spin-off that never was, after a fan tagged the director and said that they would have loved to see the episode lead into a spin-off for the team, and DeKnight reminded fans that could have very well happened, saying it almost did with an exclamation mark afterwards. And so after the episode, Hartley's Oliver Queen continued being a regular player in Smallville until the end of the series, with other Justice League heroes coming back or debuting until the show was over. So there was many characters throughout the years, including Supergirl, which obviously is a bigger part of the Arrowverse now. And so they definitely had the roster of heroes, they had the actors who were involved in Smallville throughout the 10 seasons to do this. And it seems Stephen DeKnight never gave up on the idea of doing a Justice League TV show with those actors and with the characters that appeared on Smallville, and just the fact that he keeps bringing it up over the many years since this episode came out. Like, you guys have to remember, this is season 6, this is a long time ago. So I think it's very clear that at the time he thought it would have really worked, and he still looks back at that episode and thinks that was the perfect backdoor pilot for a Justice League TV show, a spin-off of a Smallville. We never got any Smallville spin-offs, which is a big shame. Yeah, they continued kind of with season 11 in the comics after it ended its 10-season run. And we have seen various actors from Smallville appear in the Arrowverse over the many different shows and the many different years that we had. Obviously, Erica Durance had a big role to play as Supergirl's mum, and we had the return of Tom Welling in Crisis on Infinite Earths in the Batwoman episode in part 2 of Crisis. So that was a huge callback to what happened, and yeah, we never got to see Michael Rosenbaum again or any of the other characters playing the same character, but with Tom Welling we saw him playing the exact same character, and that was great. So it really made us wonder at the time when Crisis came out, what would it have been like if we got a Smallville spin-off, if we saw these actors return again? Well, we nearly got it with this Justice League show. And so the Screen Rant article goes on to continue to say what the Smallville Justice League spin-off show would have been about as a subheading. So let's get into this. So DeKnight's recent comments is far from the first time he has mentioned the original plans for a Smallville spin-off centered on the Justice League. 8 years ago in 2016, Krypton Site, once again shout out to Craig, shared some exciting details about what the Justice League series would have entailed. The information came from an interview with DeKnight for Smallville, the official companion book for season 6, which had never been released before. So Smallville season 6 was the one responsible for the biggest setup of this spin-off show, and its Justice episode was in season 6. As such, DeKnight had a lot to say about the Justice League series. The creator mentioned how a couple of ideas were explored for Smallville's Justice League, and so we're going to hop away from the Screen Rant article just for now, just to read the 2016 article by Craig on Krypton Site, because there he gives full quotes and it gives a really good idea of what he has continued to say today. I'm talking about Stephen DeKnight here. And so he says in the interview way back when, there were a couple of different plans that never quite came to fruition. At one point we were planning a spin-off. We started to put it together. It was going to basically be Green Arrow, Cyborg, Flash, a couple of other DC characters living in Metropolis. The idea was that Oliver Queen was basically giving refuge to young people with superpowers, kind of in a Professor X kind of way, putting together this team and also trying to help out these people. And he says in Justice, the episode, about how he helped out Victor Stone and Barton Arthur Curry. And so the Justice League spin-off would have been teed up in Smallville season 6 finale. The idea, and this is another quote, with that was going to be that Green Arrow was going to appear towards the end and help Clark with his final battle, provide him with an important piece of information, as it was in the season we actually find out that Green Arrow and his crew of superheroes have been attacking the 33.1 installations. In Prototype, they provide the information on how to penetrate the prototype's force field, but originally he was going to come back and help out, and that was going to be the springboard for the spin-off that ultimately just never happened. He goes on to say, I was supposed to co-create it and run it, so I'm doubly sad. We were all really excited about it, you know me and the other actors, we all got along great and we wanted to make this show when we thought it could actually be really, really cool. He goes on to say, we had talked about bringing Brainiac back. Obviously we saw Brainiac in Smallville, quite possibly in a different form, played by a different actor, so it wouldn't have been potentially be James Masters if he had been busy or if they chose to actually go with a different type of Brainiac. And so we kicked around some ideas for bringing him back as somebody else from the Buffyverse, which would have been a fun nod. We talked about bringing him back as a woman, so it would have been a female version of Brainiac. And I wouldn't be surprised at some point between now and the time the show wraps up, and obviously he was doing this interview back in season 6, you have to remember that. So at this point, Smallville hadn't ended, that Brainiac pops back up. And he says, I had a full master plan for Brainiac showing up in the spin-off that I won't tell you what it is because you never know, a spin-off may happen in the future and I will use this, but it was awesome. So there you have him talking all the way back during season 6 of Smallville, talking in depth about this Justice League show that he wanted to do and the fact that he wanted to include Brainiac, and he says, you know, a spin-off may happen in the future all the way back then, and it just never happened. And so I think the fact that Stephen DeKnight is still commenting and replying to people online to this very day, the last comment that we broke down, and it's just like one comment that we mentioned earlier, was literally in May 2024, so it was just recently. So I still think he thinks about that, and so shout out to Krypton Site and Craig for that interview way back when. And the fact that you republished it in 2016, it gives us a very good insight into what could have been, and it links into the Screen Rant article that we're breaking down today. And potentially some of you guys who are watching this video never heard of that spin-off because maybe you weren't active back in 2016, maybe you didn't watch Smallville originally, and so this might be coming as a bit of news to you, even though it's not new news. But yeah, the comment is recent. So let's continue with this. Let's talk about why it ultimately didn't happen. So no one involved with the project has revealed why the Smallville Justice League spin-off series did not work out. However, there might be a simple reason for that, and that is based on Smallville's timeline. The Justice League series was being planned in 2007, which was when Smallville Season 6 came out, and at the time it could simply proven impossible to bring the Justice League to life on the small screen for over 20 episode seasons due to budget concerns. Now you have to remember, Smallville did do 20 episode seasons, and back when Arrow and the Arrowverse started, they were still doing that. And so Smallville did its best with special effects, but the Justice League series could have been too costly due to having multiple heroes, and maybe that could have been a thing, a concern for Warner Brothers, a concern for the people running the show, because maybe it was just going to be too expensive for back then. And so DC's parent company, Warner Bros., has a long history of cutting TV plans due to the ideas of the character being developed for movies, so it could potentially be back when they were doing season 6 and they wanted to do the spin-off. You know, you had like Batman Begins coming out, you had Brandon Routh's Superman and Superman Returns, and perhaps they were workshopping an idea of the Justice League movie back then that could have potentially hindered a Justice League spin-off. Now, we don't know if any of that is true, that's just what they bring up in the Screen Rant article, and I completely agree. I think probably behind the scenes at Warner Brothers, they probably had concerns about them doing a Justice League show, having so many characters, and their movie plans could have been hindered. I mean, even with the DCU, we know they restricted the use of certain characters like Batman and Superman from the Arrowverse for a very long time. Like, that's the reason you never saw Superman in season 1 of Supergirl. You only ever saw him in a silhouette. He was never fully on screen, and that's why, you know, at one point they got approved in season 2 to use Superman, and that's when Tyler came in as Superman. And so same thing goes for Batman. Like, we never saw Batman until we got to like Batwoman and Crisis on Infinite Earths. So it's very possible that at the time during season 6 of Smallville and when they were planning to do this spin-off, maybe they got restricted by what Warner Brothers was willing to let them do on TV. So I guess we'll never know until someone actually comes out and tells us why it didn't happen. But it's a great idea, and I love that Steven has been very active, still commenting to this very day about this show and the fact that he thinks it would have been great, and it nearly happened. They were working on it, guys, and it's such a shame, but yeah, I'm happy to report on it. I'm happy that he's still talking about it, because, you know, for me, I would love to see continuations of shows like Smallville, or a continuation in the future of the Arrowverse, whether it be like a animated show. So that's why I'm a big supporter of Smallville trying to do an animated show, because I think if that Elseworlds project gets made, it's definitely going to set up a precedent for shows that have ended and potentially shows that got cancelled like Legends of Tomorrow or Stargirl to potentially continue in an animated version where they could actually get the proper end to the show that they deserve. So I would really like to see that, or even just like an Arrowverse animated show way down the line that's just like a reunion of the actors voicing the characters. But that about does it for this video, guys. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to leave a like and a comment. It would really help this video get out there. Also subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos. We're uploading daily right now, so keep those notifications on. Click the bell button next to the subscribe button, and also become a member of the channel if you want to support the channel. If you like the content that you see, we have some special members perks, including members live streams that we do roughly once every 2 months. So for now, thank you for watching. Click on the top right corner of the screen to watch my latest video, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.